Cinemoddities, late night movies with Rob and Zack. This is a podcast about cinematic oddities where we discuss any media that is too bizarre, abnormal, or off-kilter for contemporary audiences. Occasionally these projects gel. Most times they crash hard into the realm of obscurity. Join us as we delve into the cult classic swamp. I'm Zack.
And I'm Rob. And of course, this week on Cinemoddities, we are finishing up our Fan-Vember/Fansgiving series. Before we jump into a movie today, and I throw it over to Zack to explain who we got it from, I want to say that I think for the first time on all of Cinemoddities, I am genuinely not okay with a movie. So I wanted to give some background to this. I think I've said it briefly on here. If you've ever lived with me, you know this about me. Zack might know it about me. I have an irrational fear of dolls. Like not stuffed animals, not action figures. Like I'm talking those old school porcelain dolls, those kind of figurine type, little bigger than like a kid's toy, maybe a little smaller than an actual human. My whole damn life, these things have freaked me the hell out in an irrational and unnatural way. Like I wouldn't leave rooms in my grandparents' house because I knew there was a doll in there. Oh, don't even get me started on Chucky. We will never, ever review Chucky. That movie scares the hell out of me. That might be where Zack knows about this from because my dad is a huge Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, and their coach for a long time was John Gruden. And for some reason, my dad loved the fact that people thought John Gruden looked like Chucky, and so there's actually many Chucky dolls in my parents' house, and it fucking ruined my childhood. There you go.
I never knew that, folks.
I do not do well with dolls. I do not do well with, and I think more explicitly as I've gotten older and figured it out, I don't do well with humanoid-looking things because I think they're going to come to life, and that's what scares me. The two goddamn main characters of the Dark Crystal, the Gelflings, as I believe they're called, oh my God, I did not handle this well. This was freaking me out. Like there was certain things I was like, I just cannot look at this. As I texted Zack, how he's described his fear of the Elephant Man. Like there's just something about it. Like it's not the movie that I'm afraid of. It's just looking at these creatures. So I had an immensely difficult time watching this movie just because I had to deal with that. One of my notes is literally, oh fuck, there's another ugly thing when another Gelfling shows up. And that I almost like literally did not want to watch the rest of it. But I powered through. I'm still not okay with it. I never want to look at these damn things again. No one should ever look at them. But I was frightened. I was frightened during this movie, Zack. It was a rough time. So with that being said, we don't have to harp on my fear of the Gelflings too much. I don't even want to say their name. I was really hoping that one would stay dead in the end. That'd been great. But no, now I'll throw it over to Zack for this introduction into the Fansgiving episode. Where did we get the Dark Crystal?
Well, Rob, we got the Dark Crystal suggestion from Mackenzie C. She contacted me through my Knights of Vader podcast Instagram, and after much back and forth, she gave us a list of movies to talk about, but she eventually decided on the Dark Crystal. And that's why we're here, folks.
I totally would have taken the Fievel movies over this.
I don't know. Those are rough too.
But those wouldn't make me like anxious and sweaty while I'm watching a movie.
True. I guess we should say we had a bunch of movies Mackenzie gave us on her short list. We had An American Tail, its sequel, The Village, Princess Mononoke. There was a bunch of things there. And she eventually decided on the Dark Crystal. And I told her, and I shared with her Rob's response to her selection. And she said, I'm glad. Let me get the exact response. I am glad that like both of you will be upset. This is kind of like the opposite of what we do to the audience. This is the audience now getting its revenge on us.
So our misery will be immeasurable. Our suffering will be immeasurable.
Our suffering will be legendary.
Good job, Mackenzie. I'm imagining you did not understand my fear of dolls or humanoid things like this. But you picked it well, My suffering was very immeasurable.
I did warn her. I'm like, I've watched this because, I guess my context time was that I've been aware of this movie for practically ever. I remember back when I lived in Florida with my nephew. He had like in his bedroom, he had a rack of VHS movies, and he was always into this sort of stuff. Like he liked the more fairy tale-esque things, like I guess more like, I don't want to say Lord of the Rings, but like he had like the animated Lord of the Rings movie back from like the 70s, and so he was always into this more mystical side of stuff. Like he liked that sort of stuff. And I remember seeing the VHS tape in his room, and I asked his mother, my sister-in-law, and I'm like, oh, how's the Dark Crystal? Because like you look at the box art and it's terrifying. Like it is nightmare fuel. And the fact that this is like listed as a children's film is kind of like baffling to a child. And she's like, oh, it's like really good. And I'm like, okay, I'm never going to watch it. But like my main memory of this beyond that was like, I think I had a couple of Muppet Babies VHSs. And I think on one of them, there was a preview for this being like, oh, if you're interested in Jim Henson, check out The Dark Crystal. Yep. And it's like one of those like, 60-second, 90-second like advertisements, like, oh, check it out on VHS. And it wasn't until I want to say early last year, because I know the film had its, I think 35th anniversary.
Okay.
That 35th anniversary, December 2017. And I've always been interested in this movie, like in that sort of sense, like before I'd actually watched it. And I know it came out like on like 4K Blu-ray, and I'm like, oh, like I probably should pick this up because I do like a lot of like Jim Henson, like adult stuff. Like one day we will talk about Disney's Return to Oz, which is sheer nightmare fuel. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And so I got it. Oh yeah, that's it. That movie's a trip, folks. That's kind of like another one of those ones where I'm not sure if Rob and I are prepared yet to talk about Return to Oz. Like I've heard stories, but even that's one of those ones, folks. We might have to climb that mountain, but it might be a long time from now. But no, so I got the movie because I know they released it on Blu-ray years ago, like more of like a standard packaging. It wasn't like a super duper collector's edition. And I got that from the library and I watched it, and I'm like, oh, good Lord, like I hate this. This is awful. Like I don't, and we'll get more into it later on though. But like I can appreciate the technical aspect of it, just the sheer amount of man hours that went into just like designing all this nonsense and operating it. Like absolutely. I can appreciate the craftsmanship and the puppeteering of it all, but like as a finished product, it is horrifying, and I cannot not recommend it enough.
I have to say I agree with you. Once I was able to power through all the Gelfling stuff, I still hated this movie. This is. I think we both agree. This is bad, like a capital B. Oh yeah, I mean, like Zack said, we'll get more into it. But the Gelflings was just my dislike of things looking like that. But everything else, from the like Zack said, I'm with you on the idea that there was so much manpower, so much effort put into this puppetry and puppeteering. I have nothing against that, but there's like the voice acting in this movie is terrible. The plot is so loose it hurts. It just moves on at a pace that never really makes any sense. Characters get introduced just so you have something to look at, it seems. I couldn't stand any of it. This kind of was like, I've heard this before as described as something for kids, but this has got to be for toddlers or something, and you're just going to horrify them at an early age. Well, that's the thing. I know like probably Rob in the research he did saw that like, oh, Jim Henson's like thesis for this. I guess we should say Jim Henson, Frank Oz co-directed this film in 1982. And like Jim Henson's big thing was like, oh, he wanted to go back to like Grimm's fairy tales, the idea that like, let's not like, sand down the edges on children's entertainment, which I think is admirable. I think there should be some elements. I think maybe not nowadays, but back when Rob and I were growing up, there was always entertainment that had that kind of edge to it that spooked us. But this, like, everything is aesthetically ugly. Everything. Yeah. Like, I get scaring kids, but like, there's nothing. Like, the craftsmanship is beautiful as an ideal, but in execution, like, everything is ugly looking. Yep, and I agree with you. Everything is ugly looking. It ranges from ugly to horrifying. But I think if you even go a little further, like we've been saying, we appreciate the effort that went into this, but I thought this movie was so clearly limited by the puppetry that at times it was embarrassing. Like, I'm thinking of it like what Gelfling dude goes to ugly witch lady who's an astronomer. Guy McPuppet. Guy McPuppet. Guy McPuppet goes to Astronomer McPuppet, and she's like, yeah, I have the shard, but it's just, in this case of shards. And I'm like, wow, that was easy to get the main quest item. But there's a scene where the black lobster monsters show up to get the Gelfling, and the shot is so stupid. Like 3 of these giant monsters come in, and our 2 main characters just stand there, and one of their mouths opens. It's like, this is embarrassing. I get you're limited by the technology of the time and the technology you've chosen to use, but there has to be better ways to shoot that, to not make it look so simple and so limited, like I said. And that's what got me on a lot of this movie, where sure, if you just let your eyes glaze over during some of those ending battle scenes, maybe it passes. But I was trying to look at specific characters and what they're doing, and it's just like they're doing nothing. They're just spinning around in some cases. And it's like, I guess that's choreography.
I guess that's the thing. That's like, I know a lot of people worship the ground Jim Henson walked on. And as an artist, he was talented. You can't deny his influence on entertainment and just the culture in the 70s and 80s. You can't deny that. But some people are just blinded by that. They're not willing to objectively look at what he does. Mm-hmm. And like Rob said, we do have to concede this was 1982. He was pioneering a lot of this stuff, because think about it. But I can't think of another puppeteered film that was on this scale before this.
Oh, yeah, not at all. Nothing. And then I even looked a little bit into that, and this really was, groundbreaking for sure.
Well, yeah, this is kind of like what Tron was for visual effects in 1982. This is what it was for puppets. And I respect that. I do. But like you said, we have our 2 main characters, Guy McPuppet and Gal McPuppet, and our 2 main characters have literally no facial expression. Their facial expression is blinking and opening their mouth in awe. Yet you have the Skeksis, which I think are the only interesting part of the film, because they're the only ones that are really scene chewers. Mm-hmm. And yet those puppets are so intricately detailed and so emotive, and they're horrifying, giant, vulture people. Yet our 2 main protagonists, who are supposed to be the closest thing we have to humans in this, are the most stoic and just one note in an emotional sense. Yeah. And I can't figure that out as to why Jim Henson and Frank Oz, and yes, I get they would go on in later years, hone their craft, but you'd think they would have been like, oh, we need to pour more money into our protagonist, because a lot of the weight of the film's going to be on their shoulders.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I think that's why they specifically, the Gelflings in this movie, are the things that freak me out so much, because they emote so little. It's like another thing that scares the hell out of me is that Twilight Zone episode with, it's not Chatty Cathy, Talking Tina. And the doll talks, and the doll has very limited facial movements, and just, its eyes blink and its mouth moves, because that's all a doll would do. And that's what these characters do. And you're making a great point with, well, why the hell wouldn't they try and make these be a little more expressive?
Oh, yeah, because even you look at, this was after Yoda. And even though Yoda is considered one of the hallmarks in puppeteering, look at the amount of emotion they got out of him in when they were making Empire. That was 78, 79. So they certainly by this time could do stuff like this. So I don't know, because as I was watching this, and I really folks, we'll get into it later on why there was a second movie in the title of this episode, but
we're putting it in the title? I guess I didn't ask that.
It's going in the title. It has to go in the title.
Is it going to be in the middle of the title of The Dark Crystal?
Maybe. Because as I was watching this, and I really I'll be honest, I kind of put it on in the background. I couldn't sit through and focus on this. I'd lose my mind. But as I was watching it, I kind of came to a realization, because I was watching this movie just feels familiar on a thematic level, and just in an abstract sense. It just felt so familiar, and I couldn't put my finger on it for the longest time, until I eventually did. And I realized this movie was ripped off by Jimmy C's Avatar. It's the exact same movie.
Yeah, I got that same sense. One of my notes is, I was going to ask you, Zach, which do you like better, the world of this movie or Pandora?
And that's what it is. You have this giant structure that's kind of the focal point of the entire plot. I think in Avatar it was the tree, giant tree. You have your evil villains who are just kind of like scene chewers for no other reason. And you have your two protagonists, which are essentially just giant, like, in Avatar sense, they are literally avatars, but it's just like these blank voids for the audience to kind of project themselves onto.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's what this is. This is kind of like a primitive form of Avatar where all the effort was put on the quote unquote effects, yet none of it was put on the story.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep. Like we were saying before, that story is so loose. Honestly, it's like the plot of Final Fantasy III, I think. Got to go get the crystal to save the world type of thing. Otherwise, the bad guys are going to rule forever. Hell, that's the plot of most early Final Fantasies. and that's not whatever made early Final Fantasies lovable. It was the breakthrough in the RPG style. Nobody ever cared about the stories until it got to the PlayStation era and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think, it's something we've seen, just like Avatar's a great one. So much work goes into the atmosphere and the world that we're supposed to be seeing that everything else gets shortchanged.
Yeah.
The stuff that shouldn't get shortchanged gets shortchanged.
Yeah. And again, as I was reading into this, it seemed like Henson spent more time on the technical aspects and Frank Oz was more the story person. And I don't know, maybe if Henson tried to wear all the hats, there would have been a little bit more uniformity in the sense of like there wouldn't have been so much additional emphasis put on the effects over the story.
Yeah.
Because like I think Rob, I've never seen Labyrinth, but Rob was actually, when I was telling him about this, he was excited initially because he thought it was Labyrinth until I told him, no, Rob, that comes years later.
Yeah. I guess we didn't say that earlier, that when we had all these suggestions from Mackenzie, I was like, I'd be fine for any of these. And I was, for some reason, thinking the Dark Crystal was Labyrinth, and I was like, Village, I can always complain about M. Night Shyamalan. Princess Mononoke, I love that movie. And then this movie, which I thought was Labyrinth, I'm like, that has David Bowie. I could talk about David Bowie for hours. And so I was like, yeah, it's a win-win. And then I looked for this movie, and I texted you something like, wait, I thought this was Labyrinth. What's this Jim Henson nonsense?
Well, Jim Henson was involved with Labyrinth.
He was, yeah. So I looked that up afterwards, where this movie and Labyrinth had a lot of the same staff and crew. So I'm not completely fucked up with my thinking, Zach. There was a connection there.
No, you're not wrong. No, they're very similar in the sense of like what they're trying to get at. And I guess this was the stepping stone to Labyrinth.
Mm-hmm.
But the weird thing about this movie, though, is that like there's clearly a fan base for it because Netflix just released a prequel series.
Yep, and I'm so glad I know that it's this, and I will stay away from it.
But that's the weird thing, though, is that like I don't like the Dark Crystal is one of those things that, like, it doesn't show up unless you have nostalgia for it.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think what I read if you might have said this, my apologies, but the Netflix series is a prequel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that's just what people want these days is, let's go back to the same nonsense. I'm sure it's going to be about everybody, like all the Gelflings getting genocide committed on them and the two of them surviving. I don't really know, but you're exactly right. That's what a nostalgia driven thing is. Oh, this is gaining cult status. Let's just rehash it, call it a prequel because that's interesting. And it'll dump it on Netflix, and people will watch it. They might not like it. They might consume it and forget about it, but they'll watch it.
Yep. And that's kind of what it is. Like, as I was trying to get a little bit more backstory on the Dark Crystal, there was like an insane amount of like featurettes on YouTube about the new series. And it's like, and again, it's like, oh, like all these videos about like the puppet, like the engineering feat of like creating all these puppets, like choreographing all these like set pieces. And of course they're using CGI to hide much of the wires. That's one thing we do got to give Henson credit for, is that he does hide a lot of just like the wires and marionettes, so to speak. Whereas today, they don't have to worry about it. They just sit there. You digitally erase all that stuff. So you do lose some of the artistry and the craft. But again, a lot of that is for naught at the end of the day, because like, look what Netflix is doing. It's like you pump millions of dollars into a project that like it has a finite audience.
Exactly. Yep.
Like, no one's going to, like, I don't know, maybe there will be people out there that'll go watch this prequel series, then be like, oh, I would imagine the prequel series is probably, oh God, the pacing is probably 100 times faster than this is.
I would hope they learned from some of their mistakes.
Yeah, but like at the same time though, it's like, well, how do you, like, isn't that jarring to the audience, like changing the pacing that drastically? Because this is so methodically paced. And then you go to probably Netflix, and it's like probably J.J. Abrams, like, okay, bing, bang, boom, brisk. We got to get in and out, in and out. Establish the character's plot, the point of the episode. Okay, cue credits, bing, bang, boom. Okay, moving on.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up. That's actually an interesting point. One of the only things in the little bit I looked into the prequel series, one of the only things that stood out to me was the writing team, because one of the writers is Javier Grillo Marxuach, which, of course, everybody in the world knows as being one of the longest running writers for Law & Order's VU in the earlier seasons. And so you're making a good, I wrote that down just because of this VU connection, but you're absolutely right. What is one of their writers good at? Just writing procedurals. He did that for, I think, seasons 1 through 11 or 12 on Law & Order's VU. And that's what he's good at. Just boom, boom, boom. Plot point, plot point. By this minute, we got to make sure they get to the bad guy. By this minute, we got to make sure they get to the courtroom. By this minute, we got to hit our twist. And I think that's what people want. It's an interesting idea of how will that compare to the fans of the original movie, such a different pacing and structure. But I think that's just what's almost demanded now by Netflix and I would say mass audiences to some extent.
Well, it's paint by numbers storytelling.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what it is. And again, that's just the way we go. You're not going to change that as much as Rob and I can bitch and moan. And I guess I didn't bring it up. I didn't bring it up in the last couple of weeks, though. But I guess we should give an update on Dr. Sleep. It's like, folks, like, well, by now you should know. But Dr. Sleep bombed. Like Stephen King has egg on his face. Like, he got it shoved right up his ass.
Yep.
And it's delightful. And then plus you look at Terminator Dark Fate bombing, the Charlie's Angels reboot bombed like horribly, like worse than Terminator and Dr. Sleep. And like it's delightful. Like Hollywood's finally being punished for like all the crap they're peddling. Like I love it. It's like good. Like let's continue to punish them. Now we need we need a Marvel film to bomb. So eventually like everybody freaks out and we go back to like, oh, we actually have to tell original stories. We just can't coast on just branding to get people into the theaters. Like we need that. Like come on, we need one of these Marvel films. All you gotta do is like what's the saying? Like if you can make a god bleed, that's all you need. You need one. Only one of these Marvel films needs to bomb, and the whole thing will start to collapse.
Yep. Yeah.
Come on, folks.
I'm interested. I'm glad you brought up Dr. Sleep because I was thinking when I was doing my research for this, I found something out where I was like, oh God, who's going to bring up Dr. Sleep in The Shining first, me or Zack? And it was clearly Zack. But we do have another Shining connection I was very intrigued in. I don't know if we want to get to some of that part of the movie, though, but I think to frame it before we do get to it, as I watched this to kind of, save myself from really just freaking out having to look at these gelflings, I did a lot of my research while the movie was going on, kind of in the same sense that, Zack said he had it on in the background. And I disliked this movie as I was watching it and when I finished watching it, I disliked it for what it was. And every bit of research I did into this made me dislike it more and more and more. And so I guess when we get to certain points here and there, specifically with the voice acting, I think this is some of the worst voice acting I've ever heard. Not surprisingly, the main female lead gelfling is named Kira. Coincidence to Solo and Emilia Clarke? I think not. And so I don't know if we want to go there next, but I just wanted to let you know that, Zack, that everything I researched into this, I hated it more and more and more.
Yeah, I know. I think about Kira. Kira's name's been around forever because that was Rey's code name on set, like in 2014.
Sure.
That was a weird moment in the Star Wars fandom because I know some people were like, "Oh, so we're just going to recycle," and it's spelled differently. In the code name for Rey was spelled Kira, if I remember correctly.
And that's in Dark Crystal. It's Kira.
Yeah. Whereas in Solo, it's Qi''Ra.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know. It could be. I don't know. I know even in the I think it's in even Ready Player One, whoever his name is, Mark Rylance's character who creates the Oasis, like his girlfriend's like gamer tag is Kira something.
Oh, sure.
Because her favorite film is The Dark Crystal. I guess The Dark Crystal, it's weird to crap on a movie because it is one of those ones where, like, when Rob and I talk about something that's like nostalgic, we always wonder, like, oh, if we were experiencing this for the first time, would we appreciate it as much?
Mm-hmm.
And not to bring this back to The Shining, but it is something very similar to that. Like Rob and I have been kind of like The Shining's ingrained in the pop culture fabric for us. But much like the people that are defending Dr. Sleep, and oh boy, folks, there's a lot of people defending Dr. Sleep out there, even though there's not many of them. And their main thing is that like The Shining is boring.
Yep.
So it's like, it's just the idea, like, again, and considering these films did come out within a couple of years of each other, where I think The Shining has a lot more intrinsic value, infinitesimally more than The Dark Crystal, because there really is no, like, again, there's a lot of mythology, like there's a lot of George Lucas like level of mythology in The Dark Crystal of like, oh, the good and bad being split apart, and only through the reconciliation of the good and bad does peace come to the land.
And there always has to be the same amount of them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, some of them won't get to. Okay, this is my note at the end of the movie. What? So did putting the shard back in the crystal let the mystics buttfuck the Skeksis into transcendence? I hate this. And I was like, when this happened, and they do this like weird, back that ass up scene, I'm like, how do they know there's always going to be the same amount of them? And then I remembered, and I was like, the orgy is always in balance.
Well, again, that's what Lucas tried to do with the Star Wars films.
Yeah,
the fact that it's always balanced. Because the again, in the sense of Star Wars, the Force or just this mystical, power that exists in the universe keeps everything in balance. The equation is always trying to balance itself out. Mm-hmm. And again, that's on a mythological level. That's a neat concept. It is, because it's hard to do that properly. Like the Matrix films tried to do that. Like what was it? In the second film, like they're asking, like, why is Smith having so many copies of himself? And the answer is it's the equation trying to balance itself out. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, unless you explain it properly or you do it through visual storytelling, it's hard to convey that properly. And I think that comes across rather well in this. Like I don't think there's any part of this plot that's confusing. I think this was no Dragon Blade. Yeah. Nothing will ever be Dragon Blade, right, Rob? But no, I think this is rather like remedial mythology. I don't think there's any learning curve here. It's pretty much everything's like surface level.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that goes with what I was saying about the plot being maybe not loose, but weak, because it's just like, boom, like even in the opening narration, it's like, and now this character that we're looking at is the chosen one. And it's like, okay, I get it. Like that streamlines it. So fine.
The thing I thought was interesting, though, is that like very early on in the film, when we have Guy McPuppet talking to Yoda, and Yoda, whatever the creature's called, Yoda Sloth is dying. That was filmed and created before Return of the Jedi. And it's almost a practically identical sequence.
Yeah.
I just
Does he say there is another? Does he say that? Because there's the other Gelfling?
Okay. He might. And considering, again, that's another thing, too, because I wonder with Kira and Puppet McFace, it's like, could they have been brother and sister? Would that have been, instead of having them be, I don't think you could call them a romantic item in this. I don't think so. But it's the idea that maybe they're more brother and sister as opposed to just, I guess they have to be non-related because they can rebuild repopulate the species.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, like I said, this movie, if you really like this movie, you probably could discuss it for a while. But it's just like, it's a mess, like on a visual level, that you don't want to dig into it. It's kind of like one of those things where it's like somebody tells you like, oh, here's the really crazy looking dish. It tastes delicious, but like its aesthetic level is like D-. Oh, and it's like, well, I don't care how good it will taste. It doesn't look appetizing. Thus, I'm going to avoid it like the plague. And I think that's probably part of the reason why this will always be a niche film at best, because it is just such an ugly, ugly film, regardless of the technical craft that's behind it all.
Yeah, and that's kind of, like you said at the start, you were aware of this movie for a while. I have been as well, just through name. Maybe I've seen some of the puppets here and there, but I had never seen this before, ever tried to search it out. I'm with you. I'm kind of baffled, because I've always known this movie is like a cult classic, and to me, now after seeing it and researching it, it's like, why? This is just painful.
Well, it's nostalgia. Again, nostalgia blinds everything, and that's And I'm honestly trying to think of like another instance I have where something kind of like I love looks so ugly. Yeah, I'm blinded by it. I'm like, I can't think of anything. I really like, I don't know, like maybe some things are really kind of like rudimentary that I like.
Mm-hmm.
That are just kind of like hammy in retrospect, but nothing is just blatantly just kind of like, ugh. Like this is, it really is, because like that's, as we'll get into, folks, because this film committed a cardinal sin. And I'm not sure if Rob's ready to transition, but this failed the test, Rob.
This did fail the test.
This failed the test.
I guess this works out perfectly. We should just discuss this movie in the middle of our discussion about the Dark Crystal.
Exactly, because Rob, I had to break it out, and I told you had to break it out. We went and found the Charles Bronson lookalike Death Wish movie, Death Kiss.
Yep, and as I called him, the non-Charles Bronson character, throughout the film, I think I like him being non-Braun, nonsense.
Non-Braun, what?
Non-Braun, nonsense, Bronsens.
Nice. I like calling him like Charles Bronson's. I like that. Charles Bronson's.
The when I was doing like non-Braun, then I was thinking Bronson nonsense. But I was like, no, it's such nonsense that he would flip it. It'd be nonsense Bronsens. It doesn't roll off the tongue as good as Bunce McGavin.
No.
But I guess I wanted to tell Zach that I did not bust out this film in the middle of the Dark Crystal. Like I said, I was doing my research, and I was just like, I need to power through the Dark Crystal, because if I turned it off, I was never going to watch it again. And so the next day, literally yesterday, at the time of this recording, Zach's like, okay, we got to talk about Death Kiss, right? And I'm like, I didn't watch it, but I think I will if you want to discuss it. And I was hanging out with people yesterday because it was my turn to host the football things, and I was cooking, and I was like, okay, got to watch this movie. And it was like the 7 people that were coming over were like, we're not going to just watch this movie and not watch football. So I had to watch Death Kiss after all the football was over. And by that time, I was tired, intoxicated. The 2 people that stayed around, we were all just like, hey, we want to have a good time. So I wanted to let Zach know, while I watched this, I did see the whole thing, and I think I got a good grasp on it all, but I did not take notes.
Oh, okay.
So you'll have to probably fill in some of the details that maybe I missed, or I was, laughing hysterically. There was one scene that like detracted us from the movie for about 20 minutes when he busts the drugs open in the guy's stomach. That was amazing. So yeah, I just wanted to let Zach know that this was kind of a last minute addition.
It was. I pulled this on him, folks. This is not his fault.
But I am not against it. I'm glad I watched it. This was a doozy. Way better than the Dark Crystal, for sure.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I guess I've mentioned it a few times on the podcast. Is that like there's a Death Wish knockoff, because it's called Death Kiss. It's by an actor called Charles Kovacs?
Some Kovacs, yeah.
Something like that. And what it is if you've seen any Death Wish film, there's like 4 or 5 like legitimate Charles Bronson Death Wish films. The first one's like a gritty 1970s like I don't want to call it a crime thriller, because what it is that it's a guy taking the law into his own hands, because that was when New York City really was like the Gotham, like with a capital G, where it was just this kind of like hellhole. Like Times Square was a mess. This is long before like Giuliani and the corporations cleaned up Times Square. And it was a mess. So like in the film, a bunch of like deviants rape and murder Charles Bronson's wife. He in the movie, Charles Bronson, Death Wish proper, is a doctor. So what he does, he gets a revolver, and he eventually becomes like a vigilante killer, just picks off these people.
Yep.
And then after
you know what year the first Death Wish was?
I think it's 71. I want to say 71, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
74.
74.
Close enough.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Because I was... Whenever anybody talks to me about the Death Wish or the vigilantism, I'm always like, was it before or after Bernie Getz shot those people?
Oh,
and
yeah.
This was 10 years before. So yeah. Bernie Getz took some inspiration from Charles Bronson.
But this is also after Taxi Driver.
Definitely.
The idea of like...
So there was precedent, yeah.
Yeah. And again, that's kind of like a thing like, okay, you have a crazed man and even though I think, what's his name? Travis Bickle and whoever Charles Bronson's character is in Death Wish, I think are God, they are divergent characters, but it's the idea of the normal everyday man taking the law into his hands.
Yeah, absolutely.
The motives are completely separate, but it's still that notion of like it's a guy, an average citizen cleaning up the streets, and society being like, well, the police aren't doing anything, so who are we to argue?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't seen the original Death Wish in a long time, but I definitely saw it because I'm pretty sure my mom really likes Charles Bronson.
Charles Bronson's great. Like he's one of those fantastic character actors that like you don't get anymore in movies. Like he it used to, again, it's still true in Hollywood for the most part, is that like if you had interesting enough face, you could always find work in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he was. Like he was a character actor for the longest time. Like he would show up in like, oh God, like Saturday morning serials, whether it be like Have Gun Will Travel, those sort of things. And then eventually he graduated to things like The Dirty Dozen, The Great Escape. And he's great. Like you see Charles Bronson, you cannot mistake him for a second. He's Charles Bronson.
Oh yeah.
And so, like with the Death Wish series, that first film, I guess, was popular because they made a ton of sequels. I think by the third or fourth one, it becomes almost like Rambo-esque, where he'll just go into like a slum with like a bazooka and just murder everybody. And again, for what it is, it's absolutely bonkers and just fabulous. But I guess those sort of films aren't in vogue anymore because I know a couple of years ago Eli Roth made the Bruce Willis Death Wish, and like all the movie critics just came down upon it because this is okay. What's the phrase the movie critics love? Problematic.
Yeah,
like this is problematic. And it's like, oh my God. It's again, everybody's on their high horse. Again, we live on the high horse now. Nobody can ever come down from it.
Yeah, exactly.
So when this movie, again, I heard about it, like it had to be last year. And I'm like, oh boy, this is neat. We're making a Death Wish knockoff with knockoff Charles nonsense. Or I'm sorry, Bronson's. Bronson's. And I'm like, again, it's always been on my short list for years now. And especially with Fandember Fansgiving, it's like, okay, Rob, we need to have this like behind glass with like a little sign that says, in case of emergency, break.
Yep.
And the Dark Crystal was that break, folks. Like Rob, I did not stop the Dark Crystal because like he said, I would not go back to it if I stopped it. So I watched it afterwards, and I think I texted Rob, like, I'm not even 5 minutes into the movie, and this might be the greatest thing I've ever watched.
Yes. Yes.
Like, everything about this movie is so hammy and low budget, but it's absolutely delightful because we have a Charles Bronson knockoff as the titular star.
It really is delightful. It's a movie that's good fun, I would say.
Oh yeah.
All the gore effects, the weird dialogue between the characters. I think this has some of the worst looping in movie history.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like they don't like whoever the loop group and the ADR people were, they didn't understand the concept of room tone. So no matter where they are, characters outside, indoors, anywhere, it all sounds like they're speaking directly into a microphone and you're hearing it through headphones. Oh my God, it's fun. It's fun. Daniel Baldwin.
Yeah. We'll get to him.
We'll
get to him. But yes, going back to your point about the sound mixing, I'm pretty sure the sound mixer was like a deaf mute. Like I am like 99% convinced of that because it's horrible, the sound mixing.
Oh,
like
yeah.
even beyond, like it's beyond like the problems of low budget, like any sort of low budget film you're willing to forgive some of the like weird things here and there. But like like Rob said, like even the ADR of like Charles Bronson's,
he never moves his lips while he's talking, but we hear him.
Oh yeah. And to be fair, at certain times while I was watching this, I was referring to him as Death Kiss.
Oh,
I'm like, watch out, Death Kiss is coming. But yes, I think I do want to give a nomination. I think is completely unjust last year that the little girl in the wheelchair character did not win an Oscar for possibly the greatest role in cinematic history.
Oh my God.
She has some of the greatest lines of dialogue that have ever been put to page and screen.
She does, and I think how stale her delivery is makes them even funnier. But she's definitely like she's not all there, it seems, on screen.
Oh yeah, because like the first line that was great was like, I'm watching this, and again, I'm barely 5 minutes into it, and we have like again, I don't want to phrase it this way, but I'm pretty sure this probably was like the character description when they were casting the character. It's like the smoking hot Latina mother. Or I guess smoking hot Latina MILF, I would imagine, was the character description on the call sheet. and we have her like wheeling her daughter up the driveway to get the mail, and it's like it's okay, honey, we'll get the mail, blah 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 blah. And then like the daughter turns around and it's like, Mr. Fluffy got eaten by a coyote. And it's like, what the hell? Where did this come from?
But what about that coyote who ate Mr. Fluffy?
That was
Can I get the mail?
yeah.
And I'm like peeing myself, being like, oh my God. Because even prior to that, how the film begins, like you said, is Daniel Baldwin going off on like an Alex Jones level tirade.
Mm-hmm.
And it's glorious. Like, it is like perfectly ham-fisted. Like, somebody broke into Alex Jones' studio and took his notes one day.
I guess we should say the Daniel Baldwin stuff kind of doesn't really frame the movie, but it's like not an anchor point, but we always go back to it. It's like we get Daniel Baldwin, scenes will play out, Daniel Baldwin, scenes will play out, and he's kind of always describing at a higher level what's going on. Then of course there's that kind of reveal at the end that it explains why Daniel Baldwin's stuff he's talking about in Charles Bronson nonsense is doing the stuff he's talking about. So I thought that all worked great. I thought that was really interesting.
Well, yeah, and what it was the whole thing with Daniel Baldwin's character is that they can't show like a city. Like, obviously they weren't shooting in New York or any sort of major city, so you can't show crime on the level that like a major Hollywood production can with like hundreds of extras.
Yeah.
So Daniel Baldwin's ranting is a real life flourish to these events. We're fleshing out the universe in a very low cost way that doesn't undermine what the film's trying to convey to us.
Oh yeah. Right.
And like you said, it's clever that eventually how the film ties him in to the narrative. He's not just like this outside, like quasi in-universe narrator.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're what he's like the watchtower person to the Justice League.
Sure, essentially.
Charles Bronson is Batman, and Daniel Baldwin is Commissioner Gordon's daughter.
Something like that. But like we have some like most of the Death Wish movies that you see some like criminal performing a heinous crime. Charles Bronson shows up and like shoots them in the gut and they die a horrible death.
Yep.
Like we should say that the Death Wish films, at least the first one, was never like a gory film. Like, yes, he would shoot people and there'd be blood, but like he never shot someone's head and it like blew up into like a pulpy mess. It was never like overly gory. This is certainly more gory than those, like the first film was. But for the most part, he shoots people like in the abdomen, and they have the 300 effect where they have 1,000 blood pressure and their blood goes in every single direction.
Not only is it the 300 effect of the incredible blood pressure, I think the people in this movie inherently have more blood than humans have.
Yeah. And it's all concentrated right where their wound is going to be.
Yes.
Their blood knows, like, oh man, I'm going to get shot here in a couple of minutes. Better get ready.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, so like, no, by going through the film real quick, because again, Rob didn't take notes. Again, the whole plot of it is like in a nutshell. I guess I don't think we can spoil. Like, we're gonna spoil it though, but it's not really much of a spoiler. Is that Charles Bronson?
I have something to say about the end of this movie for sure.
Oh, sure. But give our audience a little bit of a plot synopsis.
Sure.
Is that Charles Bronson goes around shooting people. Again, when he kills these people, he like takes their money but burns like any sort of like jewelry or anything like that to make it look like it was a robbery. So it's not just somebody picking off scumbags. And what he does with the money is he gives it to the smoking hot like Latina MILF and her daughter. And throughout the whole film, like the smoking hot Latina MILF's like, why do you keep giving like us money? Why do you keep coming around here and being like very mysterious? And even at one point we have a fantastic sequence where like she invites him over for lunch and she's like standing in her bedroom, like takes her shirt off. And she's like, is this what you want? Is this what you want from me? And he's like walks away and it's like, honey, like if he wanted you for your body, like he would have made that pretty clear earlier on. Like,
oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I that's a weird thing. Like that should be like very early in the film. Like maybe the second time when she like encounters him, it should be like, oh, you're using me for my body.
And I love the way that scene plays out because earlier in the movie, she's like, I need to know, tell me why. And he goes, I've done some bad things and giving you money is how it balances out. And I'm like, okay, that's a movie explanation. And then when she takes her shirt off and she's like, do you want to fuck me, Charles Bronson? And he goes, no. I just wanted to give you a gun and protect you. And she's like, I don't understand. Why do you keep giving us this money then if it's not for sex? And he goes, I literally told you already. It's to balance the scales. And I'm like, that's a great answer. Like, shut up, bitch. I told you.
I think I understand. Why you help? Am I what you want? I thought this is what you wanted. I'm just trying to understand why.
I already told you.
You said you give us money to make up for some things you do, but you've never told me what you do.
If you know what I do, you'll never want to see me again.
Not true. Talk to me.
Yeah, that's like, it's weird because like, and I get it. They don't want to make it obvious because like the moment, like, and they do a pretty good job of keeping the twist, if we can even call it that, a secret until the very end.
I have to disagree. I thought it was painfully obvious from the first time they established, not the scene in the Mr. Fluffy got eaten by a coyote, but the second scene when she's like realizes that he's the one giving them the money because the guy steals the money out of her mailbox.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, oh, like clearly anybody in this situation should be like, either you caused my daughter to be paralyzed or something you did caused my daughter to be paralyzed. And when that second scene with them, when they meet, the first time they meet, that's the only thing I could think. I was like, he fucked up in his vigilante thing and shot this little girl by accident, and this is him repaying it. As the movie goes on, though, we get that, like, I guess the bad guy. I think everybody's the bad guy except the mother and the daughter and the Daniel Baldwin and Charles Bronson. But the bad guy has that one line of dialogue where he's like, I don't know who this guy is. He keeps trying to kill me. And I'm like, oh, no. I'm like, so either Charles Bronson paralyzed the little girl or this dude did, and he's trying to get it back. And so at that point, which is, like not even halfway into the movie, I'm like, so which one's it going to be? Which way is the movie going to fall? Like, how are the writers going to decide? Should it be Charles Bronson that shot her, or should it be the thug? Like, which way is it going to fall? So I saw the twist coming, because knowing they were going to reveal that, but I didn't know which way they were going to go. And it turns out the movie doesn't even know which way it was going to go, because it doesn't go anyway.
Well, I think it's meant to be ambiguous.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I actually loved it, because I was so convinced it was going to fall in one way or the other. The movie was like, nope, we don't know. And I was like, oh, that actually is kind of a twist.
Well, yeah, and even like earlier on in the film, well, toward the end, he even goes like, I'm the bad guy too. Like, it's only a matter of time until like I'm doing this stuff, but I'm not doing it, because we get like there's a sequence in this when we're first introduced to our like villain, if you can even call him that.
I think Tyrell is his name.
Sure, whatever, it doesn't matter. And like it's like, yo, my son was like sentenced to jail because you didn't like off the guy like for the witness. And the guy's like, no, man, I'm so sorry. It's like, okay, we need to prove your street cred. So like we have this person like tied to a chair, and there's like gratuitous use of the M word, which I was shocked by. I'm like, oh my God. It was kind of like it was like The Shining. It's like, oh my God. I'm like, someone using it's like, yikes. Like how much do you have to pay that actor to say the M word? It's like, ugh, you didn't need to use that word.
Just as I did when I watched The Shining, when I was watching this last night, it had to be like 11 p.m. This part of the movie comes on, Colorado time. And we hear the N-word, and I did the good old N-word alert, N-word alert. And I was like telling the other two people who don't listen to this podcast because they're fools. I was like, this doesn't make, like, in The Shining back in that day, like, sure, it's in there. It's a different time. But this movie was from not even a few years ago, right? This is recent. Yeah,
this is like within a year or two.
Yeah, so I was like, oh my God,
Yeah, it's jarring. I get it. The character's supposed to be vile. Again, fine.
Yeah, but, you had to throw in some racism before he, rapes Tits McGee in the movie.
We'll get to that. Don't spoil that just yet.
Okay, and Zach, when we get to it, I'll be using the terms because they're very different. There's a Tits McGee in this movie, and there's also a Tats McGee in this movie. They're in the same scene too.
Okay. Fair enough, Rob. Fair enough. Well played. I just got that. No, it's like we have that. They bring the guy who was supposed to do the hit, and they say, if you want to prove your street cred, you got to beat this person up. He beats this guy to death with a baseball bat. They take the shroud they have over his head. It turns out to be the guy's father, and because they're going to punish this guy for not committing the original hit. And after that, they have the guy's wife, because the guy was just like apparently just married. And like Rob said, the wife character is Tits McGee. She's there just so we can have some TNA in the film. And for some reason, Wall, our like bad guy hitman, has to like force him watch as our main villain rapes his wife in some of the most jarring rape sequence I've ever seen in my life, where we get like a shot of the woman being raped like from the front, but we don't see the guy like behind her. But then we get another, like a reverse shot of the guy behind her, but we don't see her face at all. Like it's awkwardly shot.
Yeah, that stood out to me too, because it's like they show him throw her down, and it's like, okay, clearly, you know, we see where this is going. But then you're right. They like put a divider in between them.
Yep.
And the shots of her are like the top of her torso. She's all, you know, crying and getting, you know, raped. But you can clearly see the wall, the divider that prevents you from seeing him and the bottom half of her. And then the reverse shot is the same thing, but from his perspective, where you see the wall on the right. And I'm like, I guess this is a way to do it.
Yeah, it's weird. It's peculiar. But while the bad guy is raping Tits McGee, Charles Bronson shows up, and it's like the guy like gets nicked in the bad guy gets nicked in the elbow. Mm-hmm. This time the poor man's hitman is still there, and it's like, don't come near me, Charles Bronson's. I'll blow his brains out. And Charles Bronson is like, go ahead, like let me finish it for you. And he like shoots the bullet right through the guy's neck, and then like it's like, oh, it's deliciously glorious. It's like,
that was awesome. Where he's like, I'm gonna blow this dude away. I don't even know who he is. Bam.
Oh yeah, one bullet through two of them.
Fucking kill him, man.
I don't know him.
And then we have a chase of Charles Bronson's after Tats McGee that goes on for like a half an hour, as we have like if it was shot better, it'd be a pretty interesting like gunfight.
Way too much slow motion at a certain point when he pulls out Tats McGee pulls out an Uzi out of a random car.
Yep.
With an engine in it and everything still. He has an Uzi under the hood of a car.
Rob, you can never be too prepared when it comes to being a drug dealer henchman. Come on.
And then just slow motion, like nobody's business. And there's a mud puddle for no reason at a certain point.
Yep. And while this is all going on, we have a very like clunky, edited together, like choreographed gunfight. And that maybe I think it's weird. Like the actors are doing their job. The location's really cool, but like it just doesn't click. And then eventually, like
I think the set was too obstacle course for me to believe it, because they do have some great shots where, you know, Charles Bronson or Tats McGee will be running and the camera will following them. Like, you know, if someone ducks through an old dilapidated car, the camera will go down through that car, and they show it off so much that I'm just like, they just built a fucking obstacle course. Like, This is like the doggy daycare obstacle course. Just they repurposed and put some cars in there. Like, here, run through the tube, jump over this thing, and it just felt so fake to me.
Yeah, like again, I don't know. That felt like a real set. Anybody who's been to like a car junkyard knows that sort of thing. That didn't feel staged in the sense of like they put those things in the way. That felt very realistic, where someone just like dumps these things for scrap in a lot, and they got access to it. It had that randomness to it. And I think that's why it comes across so clunky, is that it wasn't staged. So your actors aren't able to run. You're not able to get the angles and the coverage you'd probably want. And it's kind of like, okay, it would cost too much to do this ourselves, so we're just going to find a real-life location, pay the owner of the land probably like $1,000 and shoot here for a weekend. And I think even though that's probably cheaper in the long run, it detracts from like the fluidity of the film and the shot and the sequence. That's at least my take on it.
Sure. I think I'd have to watch it again to get a sense of it again, but I find it really interesting that we disagree on the reason but feel the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, we both diagnosed the same problem, though, but how we got there is two separate ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, how this eventually ends, Charles Bronson gets the upper hand on Tats McGee, and like he's about to shoot him, but then he walks away. He goes back into like the shed or warehouse where Tits McGee is, where she's still like her top is like unbuttoned, and like she's still kind of like in shock from being raped. And he like drags her out by like her elbow, and he's like, "Do it," and she's like what? He's like, "Shoot him." And it's like, "Mister, I won't tell anybody." Shoot him, then I don't have to worry about you telling anybody. Yeah. And the whole time while this is going on, the guy's like, "Just call the cops, man." And then eventually the guy just starts like mouthing off to the woman, be like, "Stupid whore, slut, slut." And
that was hilarious. I was like, I don't think these people know each other before this interaction.
And I'm like, is this like, has Tats McGee ever spoken before in his life? Like, if somebody has a gun pointed at you, you don't taunt them, especially if your boss has just been raping them. Yes. Like, your chance of living after doing these things is zero. Like, you're not walking out of here alive.
Yeah, that's putting it that way. That makes that scene like the weirdest instance of peer pressure, because you got Charles Bronson who's like, "Yo, you have to murder this dude." And then eventually the dude who's supposed to get shot is also like, "Come on, murder me."
Yeah, it's.
Okay, stop! Please, just stop. I'll let me go.
You've seen my face.
I won't say anything, I swear. Just let me go.
Not good enough.
Okay, listen. I swear I won't say a word. I won't say anything. All right, please.
Shoot him.
Fuck you.
Why? Why? Just let me call the police.
Fucking do it. Fucking do it yourself.
I can't do it. Please.
No choice.
You fucking coward.
I can't murder someone. All right? Just let me call the police. I can't do it. I won't say anything. Just let me go. Please. Please. Okay? Okay?
Fucking whore. Fucking dirty ass whore.
No.
Fucking do it.
Pull the trigger.
Fucking shoot me then, bitch. Fuck you, whore. Fucking do it. Fucking shoot me then, you stupid whore. Fucking do it. Fucking shoot me. Fucking shoot me. Fuck you. Ah!
Now I can believe you.
I think one way to describe this movie is like, I know we talked about it a few times on Cinemoddities, where like when they had the joke on the internet, someone would be like, "Oh, like I downloaded 400 hours of Olive Garden commercials into a computer and had spit out." Like what like a computer's version of that sort of commercial would look like.
Yep.
I think this is the equivalent of Death Wish. It feels like a computer made this film. It has all the elements of a Death Wish film, yet none of it congeals the way a Death Wish film should.
Yeah, I would agree from the little bit I remember and understand a Death Wish for sure.
Yeah, because then we have like that, and we have a point where our main like antagonist.
I do want to mention that Tits McGee shoots Tats McGee.
Yes,
like 4 or 5 times.
Oh yeah, she
doesn't need to do it more than once to satisfy Charles Bronson, but she goes all out. And you know what I call that, Zach? Tat for tit.
Aren't you so clever? Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. After that, we go to our antagonist drug dealer character, and he's like he's at some house, and the woman's like, "You shouldn't be here. Like, I have a restraining order against you." And he's like, "Shut up, bitch. And I have drugs for you." And she's like, "You son of a bitch. You know I've been clean for 6 months." He's like, "Come get your drugs, like junkie." And she's like, "God damn it." She's like dumps her head like in a gallon bag. And I'm like, "Oh, this is great."
She has she says like, "You know how long it took me to get clean?" And he has a great line where he says something like, he's like, "You need 1,000 pressure washers won't make you clean," or something like that.
Put it away.
Come on now. Didn't I always take care of you?
You know how long it took me to get clean, you son of a bitch!
Clean? Pressure washer couldn't keep you clean.
Oh, it's deliciously like over the top dialogue.
Oh yeah, and that's also the scene where the drug dealer guy is like, this guy just keeps chasing me and killing all my friends.
Yeah, that's the part too. Is like we have a villain, and even though I don't think I haven't Death Wish. I'm trying to think of the very specifics of that, but I don't think any of those films ever had like a great villain. And I guess this follows that trend of having kind of like, I don't want to say an impotent villain, but it's like there's never any issue of like Charles Bronson's killing him. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, because the villain is never doing anything to protect himself from Charles Bronson. Like Charles Bronson just keeps showing up and causing or inconveniencing his criminal activities. Exactly.
He's supposed to be a gangbanger, so it's like he's not going to have any sort of grand plan to ensnare Charles Bronson.
Yeah. I would say he's a barbecue banger.
So I actually only have maybe like 3 more things to talk about this film. I guess one of them is the ending, where we have our antagonist drug dealer character tie somebody up to a tree, and his way of killing them is dumping barbecue sauce on them.
Yeah, to attract the wolves. Yeah,
to attract wildlife.
Yeah, and he has the one of the fucking funniest lines I've heard in a while from a villain monologuing. Is he like has it's right after he pours the barbecue sauce, so he's still holding the bottle, and he's like, wolves can smell things up to 1.5 miles away in the cold. Bears, they can smell things up to 20 miles away. I don't know if that's true.
You know, the only thing you got to be afraid of out here are the animals. You know, I'm talking mountain lion, whatever. When you come out here, you're part of the food chain again. Remember that? You got that? Yeah. That's why I brought this. Oh. And I also brought this. Little barbecue sauce. You want to smell it? Oh, it smells good. Yeah. We're going to invite some company around here. Hey, you know, a wolf can smell something 1.5 miles away in the cold. Not to mention the bears. Hell, they can smell something 20 miles away. Yeah, you know, I don't know if any of that's true, but... Wait, what am I talking about? The bears, they're all still in hibernation, so all you got to worry about are the mountain lions or the wolves.
Fuck you, man. Fuck you.
And I'm like, why would you, even if you don't know if it's true, why would you say that to this dude?
Why would you include that in the script?
Yeah, exactly. I think that was like a note that they thought was an actual line in the script. Like someone read the first 2 sentences and was like, I don't know if this is true. And then someone thought it was the next line.
It was an annotation in the research phase. It just made it somehow into the final film.
Yeah, someone color coded it wrong and it made it in there.
Exactly. And I love at the end, after Charles Bronson is tied up like antagonist drug dealer man, and he does the exact same thing. But I love the motions of Charles Bronson's dumping the barbecue sauce on the guy. Like, it is such exaggerated, like shaking the bottle of barbecue sauce.
Yeah. Oh, he's trying to get it all out onto him.
Oh yeah. It's just like, it's so labored, and it's like, it's delightful. Like, absolutely delightful. Just like how he's just like flailing it around. And I'm like, oh, God damn. Yeah. I'm watching it now and it's hard not to laugh. Like, it's genuinely comical. Like, at one point he's two-handing it. He's actually two-handing a bottle of barbecue sauce. It's bonkers, folks. It's everything you ever could want from a knockoff Death Wish film. And then I guess the final moment I want to highlight is that we have, on top of the Coyotes ate Mr. Fluffy from Wheelchair Girl, she has the greatest line of dialogue possibly in all of just media, beyond just filmmaking, in books, in radio, in stage productions. She says the line, and I don't want to butcher it, so I'm not going to say it here. I'm going to just insert the clip directly.
Maybe he's doing it because he's in love with you.
I don't think so.
I do. Besides, someone should be in love around here. I'm only person old enough to be in love here, Missy. You're 10.
It wouldn't matter if I was 20.
What's that supposed to mean?
You know.
No, I don't. Tell me.
I'm crippled, Mom. No one's ever gonna fall in love with me. I can't even walk.
I'm in a wheelchair. Nobody will ever love me.
I can't even walk, Mom.
And that's like, I watched that and I'm like, God damn movie. Whoever wrote you is brilliant. And I love the fact, like, in any other movie, like about like a paraplegic kid, that might work as like a dramatic like moment, being like, oh, the little kid feels like they are like, oh God, perpetually alienated by their condition. Yet a moment in a line of dialogue like that has no place in this movie, yet it's here. And I don't know, considering this is supposed to be like a schlocky movie and that you're appealing to people like Rob and I don't know how that moment is anything else but a intentional laugh out loud moment.
Yeah, I was trying to think of that as well. Like, what the hell does this do? Because the wheelchair girl is just a motivator. She's not even a real character. No. She's just to motivate Charles Bronson's and the mother's kind of storyline about why he's giving them money. And I was thinking maybe the movie is trying to say that, like, no matter how much money Charles Bronson's give this family, like, the damage of this bullet in her spine is never really going to go away. But that doesn't make sense at the point that this occurs in the movie and how it never comes up again. Because the last scene we get of the MILF mom is that the MILF mom. Wow,
the smoking hot Latina MILF.
Yes, the smoking hot Latina MILF. The last scene we get of her is she like gets another thing of money from Charles Bronson's and looks at her daughter, and I'm like, so this is a good thing? Like what?
I'm with you.
I'm with you, Zach. I don't know.
I kind of expected a moment in this too, where eventually, like, antagonist drug man like breaks into the woman's house, the smoking hot Latina MILF, and there'd be a moment where she doesn't kill the guy. I'm sorry, Charles Bronson doesn't kill him. She does, and even though you might still have that ambiguous ending, you at least have like, oh, she feels guilty, smoking hot Latina MILF mom, because she was the one bringing her daughter there for like for herself to get drugs. But now, even though she caused this by putting her daughter in the line of danger, she resolved it because now this person can never hurt anybody ever again. And and we even have the montage of Charles Bronson's teaching her how to use a firearm. And that really doesn't go anywhere other than just she
plays it so ditzy and it's annoying to me.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's par for the course, unfortunately.
Sure.
But yeah, I was kind of expecting that to like, oh, that's going to be like, considering we get so many shots of this house, this is going to be like the final confrontation is.
Yeah. I thought for sure either something like that was going to happen or we were going to get the scene where she figures out or learns that Charles Bronson was involved in her daughter getting paralyzed. We have that like dip in the second act where they got to fall back in love or whatever
this
relationship is. Yeah. But I'm glad you bring it up because something that me and my buddies were baffled by was the backstory of how the mother was going to buy drugs and the daughter got paralyzed.
I hope you like vegetables. I'm kind of trying to overcompensate as a mother, and I pretty much only cook healthy food for my daughter.
Overcompensate.
Yes. It's just that I used to make bad life choices, as they say. I was a party girl. I liked drinking and getting high. And I guess now that you're finally here in person, you should know the truth. It might make you want to stop sending us money. And you hear what I did. But I always said if I ever met you, I'd tell you. So you know exactly who you're being so charitable with. You send us this money because you think we're victims of circumstance. My daughter being paralyzed by a random bullet. But, well, the truth is, I was on my way to my dealer's house. I had Isabel with me because I was an irresponsible mother. Before we could knock on the door, we heard gunshots from inside. My dealer was involved in a shootout with some people inside. We turned to run away, but a bullet went through the door and hit my little girl in the spine. She'll never walk again. That's my fault.
An accident.
I wish I could believe that. I didn't tell you so you'd make me feel better. No one can. Trust me.
Because in the movie, she's like, I'm an irresponsible... She says the line something like, I was going to pick up from my dealer, and I brought my daughter with me because I'm an irresponsible mother. And then it's like, she goes on to say that we went up to the door, and then gunshots started happening, and as we were running away, the bullet hit this girl in the spine, the daughter in the spine. So this implies that they did not drive a car to the drug dealer's house. They had to walk. Because if you took your fucking daughter to a drug deal, why wouldn't you leave her in the car?
Yeah.
So we were baffled by this. Or we were thinking also, could it be the case where they go up, they pull up to the drug dealer's house. It's this really dilapidated, like, trap house looking thing. And the mother turns to the daughter and goes, do you want to come in and see Uncle Freddie? He's got some drugs for me. Yeah. And it's like a family event type of thing. Oh, that made no sense to me.
The Cinemoddities trap house coming soon to the restaurant.
Yes. Yes.
There's a bouncy castle in the back.
A deflated bouncy castle.
There you go. It's like those air pocket cushions you get like when you order things from Amazon. That's what it is in reality.
Oh yeah, yep. The poor man's bouncy castle.
All right, so I guess after all that, I have one final question regarding Death Kiss.
Okay, I did. There was one scene.
Sure.
The drugs in the airport scene.
Oh yes, I forgot about
this. Was so fucking funny to me. Okay, so the opening of the movie is Charles Bronson goes and frees, or I guess kind of frees, like he murders the captors and the rapist of this like underage girl. And as Zack said, he steals all their stuff to make it look like a robbery, whatever. But the plot moves on. Oh wait, no, I'm confusing things. It's not the first thing. Charles Bronson just murders 2 other people randomly. And the people are like waiting. They're like texting somebody. And the guy's like, oh, he made it through security. He's on the plane. And after Charles Bronson kills those guys, he's about to like burn their cell phone. But he gets a text on the cell phone that says something like, oh my God, are you guys coming to pick me up? I need to crap this stuff out of me. My stomach hurts so bad. Yeah. And it comes up like a men, woman, and children text bubble. And we're like, what is going on? Clearly, someone was running drugs. That's obvious what they've established. So now Charles Bronson is going to go kill him. And so right off the bat, we're all like, okay, this dude just flew from somewhere, and he's got balloons of drugs stuffed up his butt. That's what we thought. And so we're like, oh, my God, this is going to happen. Like, the scene sets. Charles Bronson goes into the airport, finds the dude, like, goads him on with some money. And we're like, Charles Bronson is going to kick this dude in the nuts. He's going to shit out heroin, and it's going to be amazing, because we're just like, that's how you do it. You stuff it up your butt. That's what we've always heard. I've never done it, Zach. I don't know about you, but that's like the usual thing, You stick it up there and you hold it in, and then you let it out when you land. Apparently, this dude fucking swallowed them, and they were in his stomach. I don't think you can digest that. I think that would kill you regardless of if the balloons popped, but the scene still plays out awesomely because Charles Bronson punches him and knees him in the stomach, popping the balloons, and he just overdoses right there. And I also love the tiny fact that Charles Bronson does this because he notices that a security guard is distracted because he's talking to a woman.
I like the fact, like you said, it takes place like in an airport terminal. And I get it. This is supposed to be a very, it takes place in the modern age. We don't get a lot of technology. There's not a lot of cell phones. There's nothing like that. Like no smartphones. But I find it interesting that like even back in the day, like the original Death Wish, there were always security cameras in airports. Like ever since the security camera was like closed circuit television, like it was, you always had that sort of like security feature. And I'm like, you're doing this in broad daylight in the middle of the airport. It's like, and that's and a couple of times too, even with Charles Bronson, like he's not wearing gloves when he's like doing things. I'm like, that's stupid. Yeah, because like he should be very careful, because I know they obviously can't use any of the names. I think the Smoking Hot Latina asked what his name is, and he's like, just call me Mr. K. Mm-hmm. And that's what I forget what his name is in the original film, but it's something with the first letter K, his last name.
Makes sense.
So yeah, you're skirting around copyright law or infringement.
Yeah.
And but that sequence kind of like it's like Rob said, it's great, but like the reality of it's just like it's so wonky at that point.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's great. It's great. I knew I was in for a ride from the beginning scenes, and it was just pushing up and up,
Yeah. So with that being said, so my final question is, how do we think Charles Kovacs or whoever, not Charles Bronson's Death Kiss, not Charles Bronson, how did he do as a impersonator?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Like I said before, I haven't seen the Death Wish movies. I don't think I've seen Charles Bronson anything in a while, so I don't remember it exactly. But I guess where I want to start my answer is that I didn't have an issue with it. I thought he was the best part of the movie, just seeing him like be his super badass, plot armor self. And then even the end where he's like, we all deserve to die. I'm going to die soon, but now is your time. And it's like, great, great, just straight up action hero. And if that's what Charles Bronson was like in the original Death Wish and maybe the sequels, then yeah, I thought he did a good job. But I guess from my perspective, I thought it worked well with the movie. And maybe not even with the movie. It worked well as the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because my biggest concern, because again, he is ADR'd and it's pretty horrible at times. It's not his voice. But I guess the thing is that probably the actor can't speak English very well. Because the whole time I'm like, unless the guy has like a high-pitched squeaky voice, just use his natural voice. Like, come on. And then I realize it's probably someone who doesn't speak English. And if they has a horrible accent, that would detract from the film. So they had to go find someone to do an imitation of the voice. But considering that is that is the gimmick, that's the hook of this film, you think they would have put most of their money into like perfecting the ADR of just him. Yeah. Considering that the entire film is riding on this being a not Charles Bronson knockoff of Death Wish.
Definitely.
That was kind of my biggest disappointment. Like you couldn't, I get it. This is low budget. They didn't have a lot of money, but this is your gimmick. You have to put as much money as you can into this.
Yeah. That's a good point, and that probably would have improved this. At least that technical aspect that, like you said, does detract a little bit.
Yeah, because again, a lot of this too. As I was watching it, I'm like, are they trying to make it like it's so bad it's good? Like even during that junkyard gunfight, some of it, like Rob says, goes on forever. And it's like, oh, is this just being gratuitous because they're trying to be like, oh, this is so silly. Look at how goofy this is. And that it feels like that where they're playing into that trend, which isn't really popular anymore of so bad it's good.
Yeah, definitely.
So I guess that's Death Wish in the Dark Crystal.
Yeah, well, the Dark Crystal, I have some other.
There's still more. Okay. Oh God.
Did I do it right? I don't think I want to do it right.
Oh God, it's horrible.
So we have to talk about. It's been a while on Cinemoddities since we've done it. I don't think we've done anything that has lent itself to it. But voice acting, the voice acting in the Dark Crystal is one of the worst things I've ever heard. From every aspect, I couldn't stand it. Not so much so in the other issues I've had with voice acting where people don't know how to control their voice. This was more of just, I don't think any of the voices fit with any of the characters. And I want to start off with that, I didn't even write her name down. The astronomer, the ugly witch astronomer that is barely in this movie, but they were just like, hey, look at this character. Doesn't it look crazy? And so Guy McGelfling gets to her, and he's like, yo, what's up with the crystal shard? What's up with the grand conjunction? And she's like, I'm not going to tell you until 70 minutes from now. And she gives like the worst dialogue delivered in the worst possible way. Like, I'm going to get the clip in if I can. I might just rip the audio so I don't have to watch this movie and then cut up the clips.
What's it for? Is that what you want to know? You want to know what this is all about? Is that it, Gelfling? You don't know? You've never looked at the heavens. Everything in the heavens is here, moving as the heavens move. This is how to know when. That's what. Suns, moons, stars. Yes, the angle of eternity. That's how I know it's coming. How else can I make the prediction? 1,000 years ago, there was a great conjunction. I was there. 3 suns lined up. That's when the crystal cracked. That's when the Skeksis appeared. And the Mystics. Another great conjunction coming up. Anything could happen. Whole world might burn up. End of Augur.
But this was just so bad to me. Like, the voice doesn't match, even though it's this crazy, ugly witch character. She's just spouting off literally nothing, like vacuous nonsense dialogue. And I'm like, this is so bad. This is horrendous. Who voiced this person? I hope they never work again. And this is where everything started to go bad. Because when I looked
Frank Oz!
So for the witch was actually voiced by someone named Billy Whitelaw.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So apparently, in early versions of the production, Frank Oz was the voice, but then Jim Henson wanted to switch it because Jim Henson has a fundamental misunderstanding of the book Watership Down. We'll get to that. So Billy Whitelaw is the voice, and I looked this up, and I'm like, okay, go to the IMDb and the Wikipedia and all the sources and check it out. And I see Billy Whitelaw, and my immediate reaction, I felt like Zack, because Zack says it all the time. Oh no, Billy Whitelaw is one of like the best actresses ever. She was Samuel Beckett's muse. Like 60% of Samuel Beckett's plays were written for her. Like, they were an artistic powerhouse, and she went on to do this shit. Fuck, that was very disappointing for me to hear. It gets worse. She's not the worst in this movie. The worst by far is the goddamn evil turkey that makes the hot... Every time we see this stupid fucking character, the camera zooms in on his face a little bit, and he's looking at something, and he goes... They do this so much... It was grating on me. Like, I was literally like, oh my God, please make it stop. So many of my notes are just like, oh my God, these are fucking killing me, and that type of thing. So once again, after we get some dialogue from this character, specifically in the scene where he's trying to convince the Gelflings that he's good, we get one of the worst displays of voice acting in history, where this evil turkey is like, no, I'm good, you need to come over to this side and take you back to the castle. And the Gelfling with the shard, Guy McGelfling, is conflicted on what to do. And so Kira starts saying no, like, don't do it. But the turkey just goes, yes, yes, please, yes, please, please, yes, yes, please. And it goes on for so fucking long. I was like, did my copy of the movie break? Is it skipping?
Show them Gelflings will not harm us. Please, please, please.
Jen! No!
Come, please, please, yes, please. Yes.
No! Come on, Kira.
No!
Wait! Please? Please? Wait! Please make peace!
It is such bad voice acting. I was like, okay, I gotta see who this is. And I look it up, and I didn't know the name immediately, but this character, the Chamberlain, is voiced by Barry Dennen. And I go, Barry Dennen, I hope you have never worked in Hollywood ever again. And it turns out that Barry Dennen, we've seen very recently on Cinemoddities.
Uh-oh.
He is none other than Bill Watson from The Shining. The guy who has like...
Oh, really?
He has like 3 to 5 words of dialogue. And I can only imagine, I hope Stanley Kubrick had a sentence for him, or like a scene for him, and was like, nope, Barry, your voice sucks. We're cutting. The only thing you're going to get to say is when Stuart Ullman asks you to get the bags, they're going to go, fine.
No problem. In fact, we had time to grab a bite to eat.
Good. Glad you made it before they shut down the kitchen. Is your family having a look around?
No, my son's discovered the games room.
Has your luggage been brought in?
Right there.
Oh, fine. Well, in view of all the ground we have to cover today, I suggest we go have a quick look at your apartment and then get started straight away. Bill, would you have the Torrances' things brought to their apartments?
Fine. I better collect my family first.
Oh.
So yeah, once again, I was like, oh no, like this movie is dragging everybody down with it.
I didn't even know that. How about that?
Oh yeah. So Barry Dennen never, I don't know if he's still alive. I didn't look that far, but no more voice acting. No more voice acting. Oh, and then even the stuff at the end with the girl Gelfling, it can talk to animals, and she's trying to summon something.
Rob, of course you can talk to animals.
Oh yeah, of course.
Of course.
One of my notes, it was after the animals, but when she got wings, like it just, of course, the Deus Ex Machina is for her to have wings so they can escape the Black Lobster monsters. And my note was, isn't it great when a story establishes that our main characters are an unknown species to us and gives us no information about them, so literally basic facets of their anatomy can be Deus Ex Machina later? Like, that's great writing. It's just like, here's this character. You don't know anything about him. 200 pages later, I'm thinking novel, but however many pages in a script. Oh, it turns out he can breathe underwater. Isn't that fun? No! That's the farthest thing from fun. There's no rules, and I shouldn't care about any rules that you establish if you do that to me. I can't stand it, Zach. And that looked bad. The wings looked really bad.
Yeah, okay. One thing I did like, I like at the end, once I think, what would you describe it as, the orgy between the Skeksis and the sloth creatures?
Yes, they have to have an orgy to reform.
Yes, I did like the creatures they turn into, like the glowing tree men.
Oh, yeah, I like they were a little transparent, right?
Yeah, they were
okay.
I have no idea what they talk, and I don't think it matters. But on an aesthetic level, they are nifty looking.
Oh, okay.
I like how they looked. I have no idea what they said, but
see, that's why I brought up. I asked if these were the transparent ones, because of course the best thing in this movie, the best looking thing in this movie, is something we can see through somewhat.
Yeah, but no, they were cool, and I like the fact they got some screen time.
Okay.
Albeit brief.
Yep. So I think those were the two main lines. Oh God, I have so many notes are just me cursing, and I literally wrote at one point, one of my notes is just "fuck puppets forever." But I have to retract that, because especially of what we're discussing this Thursday for our Thanksgiving episode. Because I guess fuck all these puppets forever.
Not Yomi.
One of these stupid turkey creatures is simultaneously wearing 3 pairs of glasses. And they're like right next to each other. It's not like one's on the head, one's on a thing around the neck.
It's trying to be quirky. They're trying to be quirky.
Chamberlain, lay down that scepter. That's the only line I have written down from this movie for some reason. I don't know why.
Rob goes to parties and just starts screaming that at people. Chamberlain, lay down your scepter.
Chamberlain, lay down that scepter. Ah!
One of my notes is, I am not having a good time. That's true. One of my notes is, what the fuck are all these turkey creatures doing? Looking at this movie is horrifying.
Oh, yeah.
How does I wrote, how does this fucking ugly motherfucker know what note to play on his wishbone ocarina? I hated that part, because the witch is like, here's 60 crystals. And he goes, which one is it going to be? Oh, that's right. I have an ocarina that can play a whole slew of notes, but I know the immediately correct one to play. Like, fuck this. God damn it. So I guess the one thing I did I was tempted to go into it a lot more, because one of the things, after watching this movie, I was really like, who thought this was a good idea? who really thought this was a good idea other than Jim Henson? And that's where I got set. It was, why did Jim Henson feel this needed to be made? And I think what we said echoes a lot of the sentiment of Jim Henson, being that pioneering puppeteer, where he wanted to do a lot of this to show that he could, or to, expand the art in some sense. But while I'm okay with that, I was looking into like the motivation for the design of the characters, because that's where I was really like, what would convince someone that this is the way these should look, or, how did these come about? And this is something that it might have to be like a whole bonus episode or something like that. But basically, Jim Henson, from multiple sources I've found, interviews with him and stuff like that, he took a lot of inspiration in his own creativity from the story of Watership Down. And the book Watership Down by Richard Adams, I believe, is a great book. I love that book so much. If anybody ever tells you that's a kid book, they are very wrong. That is a very gory, dark book, as is the animated feature from, I think, the 70s.
Is that the bunny movie?
Yeah, that's
okay.
Fiver has his vision that the Warren's going to be filled with blood, and so him and his brother Hazel have to like convince the Warren to move, but not everybody wants to move, so they just get their band of stragglers together, and they have to go find a new home. And they encounter like different Warrens, different types of creatures, and it's a very kind of government type thing. How do different cultures rule their people and stuff like that, and different cultures just in things of that nature. It's great story. I love it. Everything I was reading Jim Henson talking about this, either he pulled an Annihilation where he read the book and was like, I didn't like it, so I'm doing my own thing, or he gravely misunderstood the concept of this book. Because this is the one thing I did want to highlight, because like I said, I could go on forever about this, but there's a character named Kehar, or Kehar. I think it's Kehar pronounced in the movie. I pronounced it Kehar when I read the book. And it's a bird. The rabbits, encounter a bird out in their travels, and the bird is like going to eat them, but they, become friends with the bird, and that's kind of like their outsider to their group. Kehar is a very important character because he has a different perspective on the world than the rabbits do. That's his point in the story, is that he's a bird. He sees things on a grander scale, where rabbits only see what's right in front of them. And there's a lot of great detail in the book about that kind of clash of cultures and perspective. Jim Henson, and I'm quoting, described Kehar from Watership Down as kind of insane bird trying to overcome Tourette's syndrome. This makes no sense. He doesn't have Tourette's or anything like it in the book. He disagrees with the rabbits because he sees things differently, and that's the goddamn motif of that character. So I don't like Jim Henson. I think he's dead. He's dead, right?
He's been dead for a while now.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Like I would have loved to have a debate with him about this, but as I dug further into him talking about Watership Down, I was like, oh my God, like he doesn't get it. Like one of the things, actually, this might be good for the Star Wars podcast one day, because he says something where he's like, I've always wanted to know, like, how did Fiver have the vision, seeing that all the rabbits in his warren were going to die? And it's like, that's not the fucking point. That is irrelevant to the story. And it makes me think of when where, as you've told me before, J.J. Abrams said, I watched A New Hope, and the most interesting thing was the line of dialogue about the Clone Wars at the beginning. It's like, shut up. That is such a minute detail. You're missing everything else about this story. So I couldn't stand it. And at that point, I was just I had washed away my anxiety and fear from the puppets and replaced it with anger and hatred for Jim Henson's understanding of Watership Down. And I was just like, I'm done. I'll talk to Zack in 2 days about this.
And here we are, folks. Here's the final result of all that frustration.
Oh, God, yeah, the podlings are supposed to be... He's like, the podlings were created to be in tune with nature, so we designed them to look like potatoes. And it's like fucking potatoes. You know how many root vegetables are that you could have picked a better one? It was like, nature, ground, potatoes in the ground. Okay, there we go. And it's like, really? And they look ugly as hell, the podlings, because they look like fucking potatoes. You could have made them like radishes or something. Have them not look fucking stupid, because they just look like potatoes. This movie angers me so much. I guess this is maybe the first instance in Cinemoddities where the movie scares the shit out of me, but everything behind the scenes of the movie angers me.
See, folks, Rob's discovering new combinations of emotions all the time.
Yeah, this was a weird filter to put over my train of thought. This is a very strange movie.
Fear and anger. What a weird emotional cocktail.
Yep. And then throw some violence in with Death Kiss, and it's a time.
Oh, yeah, it's quite the romp. All right, Rob, are we ready to talk about our questions?
I think so. I think it's time. What do you want to? I guess we have Cinemoddities and Late Night because I'm assuming we have some snacks from Mackenzie as well, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
So, Cinemoddity and Late Night status. Cinemoddity for the Dark Crystal. I guess I have to do yes because it is so. It's so weird in the sense of like why this exists, why it resonates with people, just how kind of like ugly it is. Mm-hmm. It has to be a Cinemoddity. Late night movie, no. Oh God, no. My snack is going to tie into this, but I was ready to bite down. I was trying to figure out what molar in my mouth has the cyanide capsule.
Oh, I forgot when we were texting. And I said I just bit my tongue off.
Yes. Yeah, this movie is torture. I would imagine cyanide is less painful death in this film. But yeah, this was a mess. Please don't watch this. For Death Kiss, I don't know if Death Kiss is a Cinemoddity because it's just such blatant exploitation.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't know. How is this going to work in the spreadsheet, Zach?
Well, it's like
split some cells.
No, it's The Shining in Room 237. Whatever the template you use for that.
Okay, I guess that would work, but I kind of feel like we have a Russian nesting doll of movies this week. Not like it wasn't like a double feature. We really.
It is.
It was a double feature. Yeah, we've been setting the stage as watching in the middle of something.
We're creating a double feature, Rob. If anybody wants to watch the Dark Crystal, they have to put on Death Kiss afterwards. That's how it goes from now on.
Okay. What if when we do these double types of features, specifically in this instance, where when one movie causes us to watch another movie, that the spreadsheet's going to have a link in that cell to another spreadsheet. We're going to have like a
spreadception.
Spreadception. Yes. Sheetception, spreadception, Matryoshka sheet, spreadstroishka doll, something like that. We'll work on it.
We'll figure it out. Again, Death Kiss, I don't know if it's a Cinemoddity. Unfortunately, a bunch of just regurgitated plot elements and some goofy-ass dialogue from a paraplegic child do not make a Cinemoddity. Unfortunately. Late night movie, I'm going to say yes for Death Kiss because it is a romp. It's deliciously over the top at times. And it's goofy in all the right places.
I think on all four counts, I'm going to agree with you, Zach. Cinemoddities, yes, for how much difficulty I had watching it, for how poorly I think it works, for all those same reasons as we've discussed, and it was just a wild ride. So definitely to Cinemoddities. I thought you were going to say my answer to Late Night exactly, but I think we're just a little separate. My answer to Late Night is no one should ever watch this. As far as Death Kiss, I agree with you completely. It didn't do enough for me to be a Cinemoddity because I'm sure other movies like this exist. Maybe not I'm not saying as a Death Wish knockoff like this is supposed to be so strongly, but just a guy goes to get revenge. I'm sure this movie has existed ever since the time of Death Wish and will always exist. And like you said, it's rehashed, recycled plot points, nothing new there. Late Night, I think I have to say yes because I used it as a late night movie last night and it worked fantastically. Great fun if you got some people you can, laugh at violence with, I guess is the best way to put it.
Oh, yeah. It's a crowd pleaser if you have the right audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So snacks. I guess we should start with our Fans Vember giving snack, right?
Yeah. So did Mackenzie have snacks just for Dark Crystal, or did we get any for?
No, she's never. I don't think she's ever seen Death Kiss.
Okay,
she's missing out.
That would have been a very strange interaction with a fan. Fan requests a movie. We go, hey, you want to give us snacks for that movie? And if you watch this other movie, you can give us snacks for that too. And it's like, wait, I didn't think I was going to get homework out of this.
You have to at least watch the trailer. All right, so this is what her snack choice is, and I quote, "My snack choice is more of a restaurant suggestion. So I say we allow the customers to be able to upgrade their complimentary small bump of Coke for an additional upcharge to a small, tasteful leather satchel of crystal meth. However, this meth will be dark purple in color, and it will grant them the Skeksis power for a short time.
What's the Skeksis power?
I guess it's the characters, the bird vultures.
Yeah, but what's their power?
I don't know, being ugly. Being aesthetically undesirable.
I think their point in the movie is they want immortality, but they don't have it. So I don't understand what power.
They have immortality. They have some level of immortality.
Well, yeah, but I took it as they were able to do something that, kept replenishing them, and if they were able to stop this prophecy, they would actually have true immortality. Something like that.
Yeah, I think they're I think that up until the climax of the film, they're kind of like prolonging the inevitable.
Okay, sure.
So yes, I think what Mackenzie's trying to say is that this crystal meth gives you some form of immortality that's fleeting.
I mean, I would bet if you ask people who have done crystal meth before, they would say it makes you feel that way.
So this might not be too far-fetched for Cinemoddities.
Yeah. So was that all of the snacks?
That was it. That was the snack.
I find it quite interesting that we did 3 Fansgiving selections. 3, of course, 4 when you count Emily's, but we unfortunately didn't get any snacks from Emily for the Aristocats. But I love in this series, 2 out of the 3 snack ideas related drugs. We had PCP from Scott last week. We got meth from Mackenzie this week. So I think we're doing something right, Zach.
Yeah, I think our audience knows what we're up to. I think they finally cracked the code after almost 2 years.
Oh, that's good. That's good. All right. So I do have to say I don't have too many snacks in total. Death Kiss, I was trying to think of some today since I didn't take notes. I was trying to mull it over because I figured we would talk about this to some extent. The Dark Crystal, though, I was tempted to mirror or repeat my sentiment from Dr. Sleep in that this should not have a place in the restaurant. But I decided not to say it shouldn't have a place. From this film, I want us to make a restaurant-wide policy that gelflings are never permitted to enter the restaurant. Gelflings aren't even permitted to think about the restaurant. So I want to just straight up, say no gelflings ever. I'm not saying we need to try and genocide them like the Skeksis did. I mean, I wish the Skeksis had succeeded in their genocide of the gelflings, but clearly not, and they might be repopulating. Who knows? So no, just gelflings. They're out there. They're scary as hell. They cannot come in the restaurant.
All right, I can get on board with that.
Okay, so what did you have for Dark Crystal?
Dark Crystal was cyanide.
Oh, that's okay.
Oh, it's a cyanide film. That's
okay.
That's my equivalent. When Rob says something's not allowed in the restaurant, if I put if suicide or death is somehow involved with the film, that means it's in the same realm as Rob's. As for Death Kiss, my snack food item is actually taken straight from the film. We see Charles Bronson's eat a salad. We see him go to town eating a legit leafy green salad. Yeah. And he also has a cup of Earl Grey tea. So I think
that was what my snack was going to involve.
See, we have the Charles Bronson's platter. It is a leafy green salad with a cup of Earl Grey tea.
That probably wouldn't be bad, but I know Charles Bronson's eats one piece of greenery and one sip of tea or something like that.
Something like that.
No barbecue sauce anywhere in there?
I figured you were going to do that. That's kind of I figured that's the low-hanging fruit. It's in an ideal world, we have a barbecue platter, and you have to throw the barbecue sauce on it with both hands. That'd be great. Maybe you get a smock or something, and that's what you do. You get this the whole table orders the barbecue platter, and you got to apply your own sauce to it.
I was mulling over stuff with the barbecue for sure. Definitely, someone is tied up somewhere, and barbecue sauce is getting poured on them. The thing that I was trying to work out in my head was, I feel like this came up once, but we were giving a reward to our workers that did really well. Imagine if we had.
Doesn't sound like us.
That's right. It doesn't. So I'm kind of thinking of, we don't have salesmen per se, but we have a lot of weird items on the menu that would need some explanation, I guess, in some sense. And I was trying to think, well, what if we had some type of, who did the most sales? Who was able to sell customers on the really weird, exotic or esoteric dishes better than everybody else? And the person who did the worst, like not the employee of the month, but like the employee of the month in the negative sense, like the one at the bottom of the list, we have an event where we like tie that employee up, and all the other employees that did better than them get to like pelt and whip a barbecue sauce at them. So it's like, it's a reason. It's that, negative incentive to get people to sell or work at our restaurant better, because otherwise they're going to have barbecue sauce poured out on them and be left for the wolves. The wolves are in the restaurant. I think they're there. I mean, we didn't invite them. We didn't put them there. I think they just we annexed some wild land. And they were just there. So it works out.
They're unofficial team members of the Cinemoddities restaurant.
Yeah, they don't. So you can tell the difference between official and unofficial because the people in the costumes have jizzles. The wolves do not.
Oh,
if you see a wolf with a jizzle, something went wrong, and we probably need to find an employee's corpse.
Then we can wipe off the blood afterwards.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh boy!
Did you know that? Did you know that humans think they rule the world, but it's actually the wolves that own it? Did you know that?
No, I did not, Rob.
You ever see a wolf? Follow it. It's going to take you somewhere important.
Some people don't realize this about themselves, but you don't have a good smell about you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to me.
Is that a dog?
It's a coyote.
Not gonna bite me, right?
Oh, coyotes are blessed creatures. If you ever find yourself alone with a coyote, you don't run away. You follow it. See where he takes you.
Oh, dear. All right. I guess I just want to give a disclaimer to anybody in our audience that the fact that we kind of crucified a fan's choice. I did tell Mackenzie ahead of time that I had seen The Dark Crystal and did not like it. I think we've always said on Cinemoddities, if you're watching something for the first, like the whole goal is to watch something for the first time for it to be a novel experience. Rob had not seen it. I had seen it and I knew I did not like it. And she was warned. I said, I do not like this movie. But she said, I like it when you two bicker in our suffering. So she knew what she was getting herself into. So it's not us, folks. She walked in. And she's the sadist here, not us.
Yeah, Mackenzie, if that was your goal, you used your one quite well.
Yes.
Good selections from our fans this Fansgiving. For sure.
Yes. Unfortunately, the last one failed the test, but 2 out of 3 isn't too bad.
Yeah. I still do think Aristocats in there, is the predecessor.
Then it's 2 out of 4.
It's 3 for 4. So
no, 2 for 4. Remember, Aristocats started the trend of having to put Death Wish on.
Absolutely.
The ultimate test for any fan's choice, the Death Wish test.
I love it. So I guess before we play things out, there's going to be a bonus episode on Thanksgiving.
Yep,
just
Thursday.
like last year. So tune into that one. That's going to be a good one. I'm pretty sure we give a breakdown of our next series in that discussion, so I don't think we need to do it here. But I did want to give a special shout out to anybody who sent us a request and did not get chosen. Because while there's not many of those, like peek behind the curtain, we didn't get like hundreds of emails or anything.
We got
like
thousands. That. We got thousands of emails. Don't sell it short, Rob. Wink, wink.
And so everybody whose choice did not get selected, we still thank you for recommending them. There's a spot for it in the spreadsheet now. We're going to have all these fans' choices just ready to go when we need to do a series like this again. Or hell, I'm thinking maybe one day. Because Trading Places is on there. Maybe one day we'll get to that when I'm off probation, and then we'll kind of have a pseudo fan's choice in some sense. So we'll see. But seriously, thanks to everyone who reached out. If your choice was picked and we did an episode on it, we hope you liked it. Send all your complaints to Cinemoddities at cinemoddities, something like that.
At charlesbronsons.com.
Charles Bronsons and Bunce McGavin.
Yeah, God bless Bunce McGavin. God bless Bunce McGavin.
There was no tape on the door scene in Death Kiss. That's what it was missing.
Come on, bro. Not every film can have that sort of majesty and just perfection.
Oh my God.
But okay, Rob. So how are we going to end this episode?
Oh geez, it's got to be something from Death Kiss, right? I guess we didn't mention that. None of the music really stood out to me in Dark Crystal. It was like a very, just another thing they shortchanged. So I think from Death Wish, we got some of those great, Death Kiss. We got a few instances where Daniel Baldwin will say something, and when he's done, it'll switch to Charles Bronson just like walking around. And there's some pretty interesting music going on. So maybe one of those establishing scenes. Okay.
Sure. Yeah, there's some pretty good atmosphere music in that.
Yeah, I dug that. Yeah, this just sounds so weird to me. You know, a cult classic film from the 80s gets reviled by us, but a ripoff of a cult classic film from the 70s gets all the praise.
Maybe it's a Dark Crystal needs is Charles Bronson's going and just shooting like Muppets.
Oh my God.
Wouldn't that be great? He goes to just shooting Muppets. We need a super cut.
Now that is going to be Happy Time Murders 2.
Yeah.
Get rid of Melissa McCarthy. Get rid of those puppets. Just make it a Charles Bronson's blowing away puppets because they're so ugly.
just a Dark Crystal puppets.
Just the Dark.
Maybe that's the prequel to Dark Crystal. Maybe it's Charles Bronson's that murders all the little gelfins or gelfish or whatever we're calling them.
Zach, when you say things like that, it sounds good, but then it sits in that if that existed, I would have to watch it. I'm not ready for that yet. I don't think I'd be able to look at a gelfling for at least a year.
I don't know, Rob. Seeing them murdered and massacred probably would be right up your alley.
Yeah, that might be
cathartic.
Better.
It'd be oddly cathartic for you.
Yeah, you know, it's like when people have phobias, they do that immersion therapy where if you're afraid of snakes, they'll put a bunch of snakes on you and kind of get you try and realize that it's not as bad as you think it is. Like I'm imagining, you know, this is kind of the reverse of that, where it's not like you're immersed. I wouldn't be immersed in gelflings, but I would be immersed in like gelfling murder. And it would be like, see, they have no power over you. If Charles Bronson is here to protect you.
There you go.
From the gelfling.
I think Rob and I have to create. I know we talked about in the past doing our anti like Ready Player One, where nostalgia is a cancer. But I think we can do it with like all like the Cinemoddities films, or we'll have like Dragon Blade, Charles Bronson's Wonder Chosen. It's our version of Ready Player One with all the IPs like we appreciate it. Fox Lux is in there.
That would be so great to like test screen that movie and everybody coming out going, I don't know any of the characters. I think I was supposed to know them.
Yeah, that'd be good. That's it, Rob. The antithetical Ready Player One, where nothing is recognizable where it's supposed to be.
Half the movie's in elf vision. That's one of the things to get the keys. They got to go through elf vision.
Another reference to a movie that still hasn't been released on Cinemoddities.
Yep, and one that I also haven't seen.
Boy.